What's up guys? So in my last video I talked about how I wanted to resize the sculpt in Nomad so I can send to the slicer so that everything is the same size when I print it. So let's send it to the slicer. 3, 2, 1, go! So firstly I want to give a shout out to AceAddity, I think that's how you say it. They sent me this resin, so I'm going to try it out. Water Washable Pro photopolymer resin. So we're going to see how that works. I've never used water washable resin, so this will be a first for me. We'll see how it goes. Before I add the new resin, I noticed that the older resin, the Anycubic resin, had a layer of film on the FEP on the screen, so I wanted to make sure that I washed all of that off before I added the new resin. Now that the FEP is clear, I can go ahead and add it back on top of the printer and fill it with the new water washable resin. So now I bring everything over into Lychee slicer. Files have to be sliced in order for the printer to read them as it prints in slices, or in layers I should say. So it starts from the bottom, which is what the model is on top of right now. That side will actually be upside down and the model will print upside down. I usually don't do this, but I placed this character right on the build plate. Usually I don't print them on the build plate, but I'm trying to get more used to printing them on the build plate, so his feet and tail are directly on the platform. We'll see how that works. So these are the multiple parts that I sent as STLs. These will all be able to be connected to the character once he is printed. And this is the snail that I showed you in the last tutorial. And the size seems pretty good, and all the parts, I'm just going to organize them just so they're sort of next to each other. If I wanted to print more, I could add some on the plate, but I think I'll just stick to these two since I'm using the new resin. So I don't have that much experience with different types of resin, so I was really hoping that I'd just be able to go into the settings and find AceAddity and add the resin. And I was hoping that all the settings would just be default, but I wasn't able to find it in the Anycubic database, so we'll see what happens. So since I wasn't able to find it, I decided to add the custom resin. So I just had to write out the name of it and kind of hope for the best. There are some directions on the bottle, but I don't know if my printer is LCD monochrome, LCD RGB, DLP. I have no idea. So back into the app, I'm just hollowing it out. They don't need to be solid, so this saves on resin, and it just creates a model that's hollowed out. I get rid of the infill as well because, I don't know, I don't think it seems to need it all the time. Now I'm just adding drain holes so that when it prints, since it's hollow, this gives the resin a place to come out. I'm also printing on the top here because I have the wood filler, so I want to practice filling the holes and having it nice and smooth. I don't really know exactly the best places to put the holes, so I'm just kind of putting them on somewhere underneath. Sometimes I don't know if pieces are too small, so I'll just add holes just in case. Now I'm selecting all of these that are off of the build plate so I can add supports. These are what's going to keep the ones that are sort of floating in air in place. Okay, everything looks good. Again, I'm hoping that the gecko will print fine. Even though it's red on the bottom, I'm hoping it'll just cut that off. I'm also adding in a few supports of my own since the ones on the build plate don't have supports. It just makes me nervous, so I'm just adding in a few supports on my own. I'm guessing the yellow parts are the areas that might need supports. And then I just export it to my Anycubic thumb drive. The thumb drive will go over to the printer. It always makes you look at these ads before you export the sliced file to the thumb drive, which will go to the printer. And it gives you this wonderful sort of light show of the layers. These are actually the layers that will be sliced, and that's how it will create the prints. And it gives you a little information that's usually wrong, but that's okay. And then I'll just save the file and exit out of Lychee and then remove the thumb drive and bring it over to the printer. So it took about 3 or 4 hours and it looks like everything printed okay. Again, this is the first time printing on the build plate and it looks like everything printed just like I hoped it would. I bring everything over. Now these are water washable, so I was a little excited to wash these in water. If only I could get them off the build plate. The parts that were, yeah, so that happened. They're really difficult to get off the build plate. I'm not sure if the burn-in layer is too strong or something like that, but they were everything is extremely hard to get off the build plate. You can see my mannerisms, I'm quite upset. And this is sped up a lot. I put a lot of effort to get these things off. Luckily, this one didn't break. I can't say for sure if it's because it's water washable, if it was more brittle. I don't think so. I think it was just the fact that it was on the build plate and I just put too much pressure on the tail. Now, as I'm washing these, I'm not feeling like the water is actually getting the resin off. It still feels slimy, like there's resin. So I kind of gave up on the water. Didn't really feel like it was working. I just grabbed my denatured alcohol bucket that I use for my normal print, or my normal resin, and I just washed everything in that. They did feel nice and smooth after I washed them in the denatured alcohol, so the print did have a little bit of odd texture in some places, nothing I won't be able to sand off. The quality actually looks really, really good, and the smell was way better than the Anycubic regular ABS resin, I guess it's called. I think the next time I print with these, I'm just going to do my regular process of the denatured alcohol, and then like I'm doing now, adding them to my wash and cure station. I do think that it's worth mentioning again, this resin actually, the smell, I would say it's 60 to 70% less potent, like less stinky than the other resin that I've used, which alone is a big reason that I think I will use this again. And I really liked using this resin. When it was printing, I hardly smelled it, and when I was working with it, sometimes it's so strong, like once I take off my mask I can still smell it in the room, but I didn't really have that feeling with this resin. So that's a big plus for me because the smell was a really huge issue and something that I really don't like. So that's a big plus for this resin. The small pieces, I just spray some alcohol in there and sort of just shake them around. They're too small to go into the wash and cure station. And once everything is washed and cured and dried, I use my airbrush to blow some air into these bigger pieces, and then I just cure them. I think 2 minutes is good. I believe if you leave them curing too long, it could cause them to crack. So of course, really annoying that the one piece did break, but it's a good challenge. It's a good time for me to practice filling the holes that I made earlier with the wood filler. That's something that I really wanted to work on. And also just, if things break, gluing them. I have to get better at gluing things together, and I have to get better at working that into my workflow, because it's gonna happen. And if I can really glue this and then add some wood filler and sand it and really make it look like it didn't break in the first place, that's kind of what I hope to learn from this process. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to go more in depth, then definitely check out my Skillshare classes where I am a top teacher. I have about 50 classes, both Procreate and Nomad Sculpt. I also have a few classes on Udemy, so if you want to learn more, or you just like my style, you like the way I teach, or you want to support me, those are some other places that you can do it. Thanks again, keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.